The
Somebody
bullet
help
entered
us,
Amy
please.
Watkins' shoulder at 10:14 p.m.
She's not
on a
breathing.
Tuesday night
We
that
need an
tasted like
ambulance
rain and
now.
regret. It was supposed to be a simple shift at May's Diner, the kind of graveyard Tuesday where the only customers were insomniacs and people running from something. May Chen, the 70-year-old owner who'd hired Amy 3 years ago despite her spotty work history, had gone home hours earlier, leaving Amy to close up alone. Amy had been refilling coffee for the elderly Korean man in booth 7, Mr. Park, she called him, though she'd never learned his real name. He came in twice a week, always
Look at the
ordered jasmine
time.
tea with honey,
He's late.
always left a $5
Something's
tip on a
happened.
$3 check,
Why aren't you
and
listening
always
to me?
watched the door like he was expecting someone who would never arrive. Tonight, someone did. The man she would later know as Sung Min had been sitting in that booth for exactly 47 minutes when the glass door shattered inward. One gunman, ski mask, trembling hands gripping a 9mm like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Amy saw it all in fragments. The rain streaming through the broken doorway, the fluorescent lights reflecting off the puddles forming on the checkered floor, the gun barrel sweeping across the empty diner until it found its target, the old man in booth 7. Amy didn't think. Her body simply moved. She stepped between the gun and the stranger, her coffee pot still clutched in one hand, her white apron stark against the darkness behind her. For one suspended heartbeat, she locked eyes with the gunman, a kid. Really, maybe 22. With desperation carved into every line of his face. Then the world exploded in thunder and fire. The impact spun her sideways. The coffee pot shattered on the floor, dark liquid mixing with the rain and something warmer, redder, spreading across the white and black tiles in a pattern that looked almost artistic. Amy's knees buckled, but before she hit the ground, hands caught her old hands, trembling but surprisingly strong. No, 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 Sung Min whispered in Korean, then English, his accent thick with panic. Not you. It was supposed to be me. Not you. The gunman had vanished into the rain. The only sounds now were the hiss of water on hot pavement, the buzz of the neon sign outside stuttering its final death throes, and Amy's shallow, labored breathing. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Too far, too slow, too late. Then came the sound that would change everything. The predatory growl of a high-performance engine, tires screaming against wet asphalt. A sleek black sedan, a Mercedes S-Class with windows tinted darker than the night itself, fishtailed around the corner and slammed to a stop directly in front of the shattered diner entrance. The driver's door flew open before the car had fully stopped. The man who emerged moved like violence barely contained in an expensive suit. Young Min was drenched within seconds, his tailored charcoal jacket clinging to his frame, his white dress shirt plastered to his chest, his black tie askew as if he'd been running or fighting or both. But it was his face that told the real story, a mask of composure shattered completely, mouth torn open in a scream of pure anguish, eyes wild with terror that no amount of power or money could control. He hit the pavement on his knees hard enough that Amy heard the impact even through the ringing in her ears. Abeoji! The word ripped from his throat, father. Then his gaze dropped to Amy, cradled in Sung Min's arms, blood spreading across her uniform like spilled wine. His expression transformed from relief to something Amy couldn't name. Something raw and unguarded and desperate. Who is she? Young Min demanded in Korean, already stripping off his jacket, pressing it against Amy's shoulder with hands that knew exactly where to apply pressure. How much? How hard? Hands that had done this before. She saved me, Sung Min whispered. She just stepped in front. I didn't ask her to. I came here to... His voice broke. It should have been me. The sirens were getting closer now. 4 blocks, maybe 3. Amy could see their red and blue lights painting the rain-slicked street in colors that reminded her of the neon signs she'd looked at every night for the past 3 years, while wondering if this was all her life would ever be. Young Min's face hardened. He looked at the approaching lights, then at his father, then down at Amy. She saw him make a decision that would declare war on the entire city. "The ambulance won't reach her in time," he said, his voice dropping into something cold and absolute. "And I don't trust them anyway. Not with her." "Young Min." "You can't," Sung Min started. But his son was already lifting Amy into his arms with a gentleness that contradicted everything about him. The expensive suit that cost more than her monthly rent, the tattoos she glimpsed beneath his soaked shirt, the way his security detail materialized from the shadows with military precision. "Get Dr. Choi on the phone." Young Min barked at someone Amy couldn't see. "Tell him to prep the penthouse surgical suite. Tell him if she dies, everyone dies." Amy tried to speak. Tried to tell them she couldn't afford a hospital. Definitely couldn't afford whatever a penthouse surgical suite cost. He tried to explain she had a shift in the morning, and rent due in 3 days, and a life that didn't include men in $1,000 suits, carrying her through the rain like she was something precious. But the darkness was already pulling her under, warm and soft and final. The last thing she heard before the world went black was Young Min's voice, close to her ear, speaking words she didn't understand but felt all the way to her bones. "Yunahe, I owe you a debt of grace. And I always pay my debts." When Amy Watkins blocked that bullet, she didn't just save an old man's life. She bound herself to the head of the Black Dragon Syndicate through an ancient code of honor that would turn her invisible life into something dangerous, powerful, and utterly inescapable. But that revelation was still hours away, in a penthouse she didn't know existed, in a world where waitresses didn't belong. Before we continue this story of blood debts and impossible choices, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. It truly means so much to see this community growing across the world. Every like, share, and comment you leave helps us bring these stories of courage and consequence to more people together. We're building something powerful. Now, back to the story. Because the real danger? It was just beginning. The interior of the Mercedes smelled like leather and blood. Amy registered this somewhere in the fog of consciousness, along with the sensation of motion, fast, reckless motion that took corners hard enough to press her against something solid and warm. Young Min's voice cut through the darkness, sharp and commanding. "Keep pressure there. More. I don't care if it hurts her. She's already unconscious." "I'm so sorry." That was Sung Min, his voice broken, repeating the words like a prayer. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. All of this. Save it." Young Min's hands pressed harder against Amy's shoulder, and even through the haze of shock, she felt the pain bloom bright and terrible. "Dr. Choi, how long?" A voice crackled through speakers Amy couldn't see. 12 minutes to the facility. I'm prepping now. How much blood has she lost?" Young Min's hand moved to her neck, checking her pulse. His fingers were cold, precise, clinical. "Too much. She's thready. Pulse is 140. She's going into shock. Elevate her legs. Keep her warm. And Young Min." The doctor's voice carried a warning. "If you bring her to a hospital, if anyone sees—" "I know." Young Min's jaw clenched so hard Amy could hear his teeth grind. "We're not going to a hospital." The ambulance that was coming for her? It wasn't coming to help. Sung Min's breath hitched. "You're certain?" "I had my people intercept the dispatch. It was rerouted from a burner phone. The driver was a contractor we've seen before. Someone wanted to finish what the gunman started." Young Min shifted, adjusting his grip on Amy as the car took another violent turn. Whoever sent that shooter wanted her dead specifically. This wasn't random. But she's nobody, Sung-min whispered. Just a waitress. Why would anyone... Nobody is just anything, Abeoji. Young-min's voice dropped, and for a moment, Amy felt him looking at her face. She stepped in front of a bullet for a stranger. That makes her dangerous to someone. The car accelerated. Amy felt the world tilting, felt Sung-min's weathered hand gripping hers, felt the steady pressure of Young-min's palm against her wound, keeping her blood inside her body through sheer force of will. Stay with us, Young-min murmured, and Amy wasn't sure if he was talking to her or to himself. Just a few more minutes. Stay. But the darkness was so warm, so inviting. Amy let it take her. When Amy opened her eyes, the first thing she noticed was the ceiling. It was wrong too high, too white, crisscrossed with recessed lighting that cast no shadows. The second thing she noticed was the silence. Not the comfortable quiet of an empty diner at 3 a.m., but the pressurized silence of expensive spaces where sound went to die. She tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her shoulder, sharp enough to steal her breath. Easy. A woman's voice, professional and cool. You've been out for 6 days. Your body needs time to adjust. 6 days? Amy's head swiveled toward the voice. A woman in pristine scrubs stood beside what looked like a hospital bed. But wrong. The sheets were too soft, the machines too sleek, the whole room too much like something from a science fiction movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a cityscape Amy recognized but had never seen from this angle. They were high up, very high up, where Amy's throat was dry, her voice a rasp. Where am I? Safe. The woman a nurse. Probably, though everything about her suggested military training, adjusted an IV line Amy hadn't noticed attached to her arm. Mr. Kang will be pleased you're awake. I'll let him know. Wait. I have work. My shift. Amy tried to swing her legs off the bed. The room tilted violently. What day is it? I need to call Maze. Tell them It's Monday. The nurse's hand was firm on Amy's good shoulder, pressing her back against the pillows. And you need to stay still. You coded twice during surgery. Your lung collapsed. You're lucky to be alive. Monday. That meant she'd missed 5 shifts. 5 shifts at $2.13 an hour, plus tips that averaged maybe $80 on a good night. 5 shifts. She couldn't afford to lose. Not with rent due, not with... My phone! Amy looked around frantically. I need my phone. I need to call. Your belongings were destroyed. The nurse's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry. There was too much blood. The uniform. Her name tag. The white apron May had given her on her first day, embroidered with, You've got this, in crooked letters because May had never been good at needlework but had tried anyway. All of it. Gone. Amy felt something crack inside her chest, and it had nothing to do with her injuries. The door opened without a knock. Young Min entered, and in the bright light of day or whatever time it was, Amy finally got a clear look at the man who'd carried her through the rain. He'd changed out of the ruined suit, now wearing black slacks and a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with ink she couldn't quite make out. His hair was still damp, like he'd just showered. He looked tired, more than tired, haunted. When he saw Amy awake, something crossed his face too quickly to name. Leave us, he told the nurse. The woman departed without a word, closing the door behind her with a soft click that sounded too much like a lock. Young Min approached the bed slowly, like he was approaching something wild that might bolt. How do you feel? I need to go. Amy tried to sit up again, ignoring the way her vision swam. I need to get back to work. I need to. May's Diner closed 3 days ago. Young Min's voice was matter-of-fact, emotionless. The owner decided the damage from the shooting was too expensive to repair. She sold the property to a developer. It's going to be luxury condos. The words hit Amy like a second bullet. No. She shook her head, wincing at the pain. No, that's May wouldn't just close. Not without telling me. Not without... You were unconscious. She couldn't tell you. Young Min pulled a chair close to the bed, sat down with the careful economy of movement that suggested violence always at the ready. And you don't work there anymore. You don't work anywhere anymore. What are you talking about? I need to... Listen to me carefully. Young Min leaned forward, his dark eyes locked on hers. The bullet that went through your shoulder? It was meant for you, not my father. You. Someone wanted you dead, Amy Watkins. And until we find out who and why, you can't go back to your old life. You can't go back to your apartment. You can't contact anyone you knew. As far as the world is concerned, you died on that street. Amy stared at him. You're insane. I'm realistic. Young Min's expression didn't change. The ambulance that was coming for you was sent by the same people who hired the shooter. If I hadn't taken you, you'd be dead right now. Probably killed in your hospital bed by someone dressed exactly like the nurse who just left this room. You can't just... Amy struggled for words, for logic, for anything that made sense. You can't just kidnap someone and tell them they're dead. I have a life. I have bills. You have a debt. The new voice came from the doorway. Sung Min entered slowly, moving with the careful deliberation of age and injury. In the light, Amy could see him clearly for the first time. The gray hair, the weathered face, the eyes that had seen too much. He was wearing the same beige trench coat from that night, and somehow that small continuity made everything feel more real. A debt? Amy's voice rose. I saved your life. If anyone owes anyone, you don't understand. Sung Min lowered himself into a second chair with a wince. In Korean culture, when you save someone's life, you create something called yunhae. It's a debt of grace so profound it binds families across generations. By saving my life, you've tied yourself to me and to my family. My son now has an obligation to protect you, to care for you, to honor your sacrifice with his own. That's not how the real world works. Amy looked between them, feeling the walls of the beautiful room closing in. I didn't save you to create some kind of mystical debt. I just didn't want to watch someone get shot. I know. Sung Min's voice was gentle, sad. That's what makes it real. Amy's hands clenched the expensive sheets. Who are you people? Silence stretched between them, heavy and terrible. Finally, Sung Min spoke. My name is Kang Sung Min. 30 years ago, I founded an organization called the Black Dragon Syndicate. We controlled imports in 3 states, ran protection in every Korean neighborhood from here to Los Angeles, and I built an empire on the bodies of men who thought they could take what was mine. He paused, his hands folded in his lap. I retired 5 years ago, passed everything to my son. I thought I was done with violence. I thought I could just exist, drink tea in quiet diners, pretend to be a harmless old man. You're a criminal. The words tasted like ash in Amy's mouth. I was a monster, Sung Min corrected softly. And you saved a monster. I'm sorry for that. But Young Min, he glanced at his son. Young Min is many things, but he honors yunhae absolutely. You're under his protection now. No one will touch you, No one will harm you, even if it costs him everything. Amy felt tears burning behind her eyes. I don't want to be protected. I want my life back. Your life tried to kill you, Young Min said flatly. Whatever you stumbled into, whatever you saw or heard at that diner, someone powerful wants you silenced. Until I find out who, you stay here. You stay safe. You stay alive. And if I refuse, Young Min's smile was sharp, humorless. Then you'll die, probably within 48 hours of leaving this building. Is that what you want? Amy wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to wake up in her cramped studio apartment with the leaking ceiling and the broken heater and the stack of unpaid bills that at least belonged to her. Instead, she closed her eyes and felt a single tear escape, tracking hot down her cheek. How long? She whispered. As long as it takes, Young Min replied. The days blurred together in a haze of expensive medication and unwanted luxury. Amy learned the rhythm of her gilded cage. Wake up to sunrise over a city she couldn't touch. Submit to medical checks from the stone-faced nurse. Eat meals she didn't order from a kitchen she never saw. Stare at walls that cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. Sung Min visited every afternoon, bringing tea and stories and an apology that lived permanently in his eyes. He told her about his wife, dead 10 years now, about immigrating to America with nothing but a suitcase and a knife, about building something from nothing and losing his soul in the process. I thought retirement would bring peace, he said one day, rain streaming down the floor-to-ceiling windows. But peace isn't something men like me get to have. We just get quieter wars. Amy found herself looking forward to these visits despite everything. Sung Min was kind, gentle, nothing like what she'd imagine a mob boss to be. It created a dissonance in her mind. How could the same man who told her about feeding pigeons in the park have ordered executions? How could hands that poured tea so carefully have pulled triggers? You're confused, Sung Min observed, reading her expression with unsettling accuracy. You want me to be a monster. It would make everything simpler. You said you were a monster, Amy pointed out. I was. I am. He sipped his tea. But monsters don't stop being people. That's what makes us truly dangerous. Young Min was a different story. He appeared at odd hours, always checking her medical charts, always scanning the room like he expected threats to materialize from the expensive furniture. He barely spoke to her, barely looked at her, and Amy told herself she was grateful for the distance. But on the 8th day, everything changed. Amy had been cleared to shower, but her shoulders still wouldn't cooperate. She'd been sitting on the edge of the bathtub for 20 minutes, trying to figure out how to wash her hair one-handed, when she heard the bathroom door open. The nurse is off duty. Young Min's voice, carefully neutral. She said you needed help. Amy's face burned. I'm fine. You've been in here for 23 minutes. Young Min moved into view, rolling up his sleeves with businesslike efficiency. You're not fine. I'm not letting you. I've seen bullet wounds and surgery scars. There's nothing in this bathroom I haven't seen before. He pulled a chair up to the tub, testing the water temperature with clinical detachment. Tilt your head back. Amy wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity. But her arm ached. Her pride was already shattered, and she was so tired of pretending she didn't need help. She tilted her head back. Young Min's hands were surprisingly gentle, working shampoo through her hair with careful precision. He didn't speak, didn't meet her eyes in the mirror, just worked with the focused intensity he seemed to bring to everything. But there was something almost reverent in the way he cradled her head, something tender in how he made sure no soap got in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Amy asked quietly. Doing what? All of this. The medical care, the protection, she gestured vaguely, You could have just dropped me at a hospital. Young Min's hands paused for just a moment. Unahay isn't optional. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He resumed washing, his fingers working through tangles with unexpected patience. You saved my father. You nearly died for a stranger. That kind of courage is— He stopped, searching for words. Rare. Worth protecting. I'm not courageous, Amy said. I'm just a waitress who made a stupid split-second decision. There are no stupid decisions that save lives. Young Min rinsed her hair, water running through his fingers. Only brave ones and cowardly ones. You chose bravery. Now you have to live with the consequences. Something in his tone made Amy open her eyes, catching his reflection in the mirror. For just a moment, his mask slipped, and she saw something underneath, something lonely and lost and aching. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold efficiency she was learning to expect. I'll send the nurse in to help you dress, he said, standing abruptly. Try not to move your shoulder too much. He was gone before Amy could respond, leaving only wet footprints and the ghost of gentleness. The assassin came on the 10th day, disguised as a replacement nurse. Amy noticed the discrepancy immediately. The regular nurse had a small scar above her left eyebrow, and this woman didn't. The new nurse also smiled too much, moved too casually, and her eyes kept darting to the IV line in a way that made Amy's instincts scream danger. I need to check your medication, the woman said, approaching with a syringe that caught the light wrong. Amy's hand shot out, yanking the IV from her arm. Get out! The nurse's smile vanished. Her hand went to her pocket. The door exploded inward. Young Min moved like controlled violence, crossing the room in 3 strides. He caught the woman's wrist as she drew a pistol, twisted with brutal efficiency, and slammed her face first into the wall hard enough to crack the expensive plaster. The gun clattered to the floor. Who sent you? His voice was ice and murder. The woman spat blood. Go to hell. Young Min's knee came up, catching her in the solar plexus. She folded, gasping. He let her drop, then crouched beside her, picking up the syringe she'd been carrying, held it up to the light. Potassium chloride, he observed clinically. Quick, looks like cardiac arrest. Clean. His eyes met the woman's. Who sent you? I'm just a contractor, I don't know names. Young Min's hand moved so fast, Amy barely saw it. The syringe buried itself in the woman's thigh. She screamed. That's saline, Young Min said conversationally. But you don't know that, do you? You're wondering if I just injected you with the same poison you were going to use on her. Wondering how long you have. Wondering if your heart's going to stop any second. He leaned closer. Give me a name, and I'll call Dr. Choi. Refuse, and I'll watch you die wondering. Jesus. It was just a text chain, a number I don't recognize. They paid half up front, half on completion. The woman was hyperventilating now, her hand clutching her chest. Please. I have kids. I didn't know who she was. Her name, Young Min growled, is Amy Watkins, and she's under my protection. He stood, pulled out his phone, made a call. Security breach, medical wing. Send a cleanup crew and Dr. Choi. We have a guest who needs enhanced interrogation. The woman started crying. Please, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Young Min ignored her, crossing to Amy's bed. His hands were shaking, barely perceptible, but Amy saw it. Saw the crack in his composure. Are you hurt? His eyes scanned her, checking for injuries with desperate intensity. I'm fine. I pulled the IV before she— You should be terrified. Young Min's voice was low, angry. You should be screaming. Instead, you ripped out your own IV and told an armed assassin to leave. Are you insane? Probably, Amy whispered. Something flickered in Young Min's eyes, respect. Maybe. Or recognition. The leak is coming from inside my organization. Someone in my inner circle wants you dead badly enough to hire contractors and forge hospital credentials. He looked at the crying woman on the floor. This was a test. To see how close they could get. Did I pass? Amy meant it as a joke. But her voice shook. You survived. Young Min's hand moved just for a second like he wanted to touch her face. Then he stopped himself, stepped back, rebuilt his walls. That's all that matters. Security flooded in, professional and silent. They hauled the assassin away. Dr. Choi arrived, checked Amy over with brisk efficiency, and reinserted the IV with steady hands that had clearly seen worse. Through it all, Young Min stood by the window, staring out at the city lights, his reflection dark and troubled in the glass. When they were alone again, Amy spoke quietly. You can't protect me forever. Watch me! Young Min didn't turn around. Someone in your organization wants me dead. That means you can't trust your own people. How long before they... I'm assigning myself as your primary security. Young Min's reflection met her eyes. No one else comes near you. No one else treats you. Just me, Doctor. Choi, and my father. His jaw clenched. I won't lose you. Not to them. Not to anyone. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Amy felt something else entirely, something warm and dangerous and completely inappropriate given that this man was a criminal who'd trapped her in a cage, however gilded. Why? She asked. Why does it matter so much? Yunahe can't explain this. You barely know me. Young Min was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was so quiet Amy almost didn't hear it. Because when I saw you bleeding on that street, when I thought you were going to die for my father, for a stranger, for nothing. He stopped, his hands clenching into fists. I realized I'd spent my entire life surrounded by people who would never make that choice. People who only understand transactions and leverage and self-interest. And you, he turned to face her fully now, and the look in his eyes was raw, unguarded, terrifying in its intensity. You restored something I thought was dead, and I won't let them take that away. I won't let them take you away. The silence that followed felt heavy with things neither of them could say. Outside, rain began to fall against the windows, painting the city in familiar patterns of water and light. And somewhere in the shadows of Young Min's empire, a traitor was planning their next move. The storm came 3 nights later, rolling in from the coast with the kind of violence that made the penthouse windows shudder in their frames. Thunder cracked like gunshots across the sky, and Amy was 12 years old again, hiding in a closet while her foster father's rage shook the house. Then she was 16, watching her first foster mother pack her things with mechanical efficiency. Then she was on that street, rain in her eyes, the gun barrel swinging toward her, the moment before everything exploded. She couldn't breathe. The medical wing had seemed safe in the daylight, sterile and controlled. But now, with lightning turning the windows into sheets of white fire and thunder rattling her bones, the room felt like a trap. The walls pressed in. The air turned thick and unbreathable. Amy's hands clawed at her throat, trying to find oxygen that wasn't there. She didn't hear the door open, didn't register Young Min's presence until his hands caught her wrists, gentle but firm, pulling them away from her neck. Breathe! His voice cut through the panic, calm and absolute. Amy. Look at me. Breathe. She couldn't. The world was spiraling, fragmenting into 1,000 terrible memories that all tasted like fear and rain and abandonment. Young Min moved without hesitation. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other pressed flat against her spine. "Feel my breathing," he said quietly. "Match it. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Follow me." His chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. Amy focused on it, on the solid warmth of him, on the way his heart beat strong and sure beneath her ear. Slowly, agonizingly, her own breathing started to match his. "That's it," Young Min murmured. "You're safe. I have you. You're safe." The storm raged outside. But here, wrapped in arms that smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder, Amy felt the panic gradually recede. She became aware of other things, how Young Min's hand was moving in slow circles against her back, how his chin rested on top of her head, how he was whispering words in Korean she didn't understand, but that sounded like comfort. "I'm sorry," she whispered when she could finally speak. I don't usually. Don't apologize." Young Min's voice was rough, raw in a way she'd never heard before. "You were shot. You almost died. You're trapped in a stranger's home with people you don't trust. You're allowed to break. You don't break." Amy pulled back just enough to see his face. Lightning flashed, illuminating features she'd memorized over 2 weeks of stolen glances and careful distance. "You're always so controlled, so perfect." Something shifted in Young Min's expression. "I'm not perfect. I'm a criminal who's falling for a woman I have no right to touch." The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. "Who says you don't have the right?" Amy's voice was barely audible over the storm. Young Min's hand came up, cupping her face with a tenderness that made her chest ache. "You're here because of me. Because of my father, my world, my enemies. Touching you would be taking advantage of. I'm here because I chose to step in front of a bullet." Amy turned her face into his palm. "Maybe I'm choosing this too." She saw the moment his control shattered, saw his eyes darken, his breath catch, his carefully maintained distance collapse like a dam breaking. When Young Min kissed her, it was nothing like she'd imagined. It wasn't gentle or sweet or tentative. It was desperate, fierce, driven by weeks of tension and fear and the terrible knowledge that either of them could die tomorrow. His hand tangled in her hair, careful of her shoulder, and Amy rose up on her toes to meet him, her good arm wrapping around his neck. Thunder shook the building, lightning painted them in stark relief. And for one perfect, stolen moment, Amy forgot about bullets and debts and the impossible gulf between a waitress and a mob boss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Young Min pressed his forehead to hers. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably," Amy agreed. "I don't deserve you. Definitely not." Young Min laughed, the sound startled and genuine. Then his expression sobered. If we do this, I need you to understand what it means. In my world, what's mine is protected absolutely. If you're mine, Amy, there's no going back. No half measures. No safe distance. I stopped believing in safe distance the second I stepped between that gun and your father." Amy met his eyes steadily. "I'm already in this. I'm already yours. The question is whether you're brave enough to be mine." Young Min's smile was sharp, dangerous, and utterly genuine. "You have no idea what you're asking for. Then show me." He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the taste of her. Outside, the storm began to ease, rain settling into a steady rhythm that sounded almost like music. Neither of them noticed the shadow that detached from the hallway, moving silently toward the elevator. Young Min discovered the betrayal in a way that would have been mundane if it weren't so devastating. A text message, sent to the wrong number by mistake. A thread of communication between his most trusted lieutenant Jin Ho, the man he'd called brother for 15 years, and an unknown contact. Target confirmed in medical wing. Boss is distracted. Strike window opens tomorrow night. Young Min stared at his phone for exactly 30 seconds. Then he made 3 calls. The first to his father, the second to his head of security, the third to Dr. Choi, telling him to lock down the medical wing and let no one in or out. He was moving toward Amy's room when the lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the penthouse in red emergency lighting. Somewhere, an alarm began to wail. Young Min broke into a run, his hand going to the pistol he always carried now, his mind already calculating angles and odds and acceptable losses. He was 20 feet from Amy's door when the explosion hit. The blast threw him sideways into a wall. His ears rang, his vision swam, but training took over. Young Min rolled to his feet, gun up, scanning for threats through smoke and debris. The medical wing door had been blown off its hinges. No. The word tore from his throat as he charged forward, heedless of danger, heedless of everything except getting to her. The room was empty. The window was shattered. Grappling ropes disappeared into the darkness below. Young Min's scream of rage echoed through the penthouse. Primal and terrible. They'd taken her. Amy came to with a hood over her head and her hands zip-tied behind her back. She was sitting in a chair, metal, cold in a space that echoed. Warehouse, maybe, or shipping container. The air smelled like salt and rust and motor oil. She's awake. A voice she didn't recognize. Male, young. Good. This voice, she knew. Had heard it a dozen times in Young Min's office. Always respectful, always composed. Jin Ho. Remove the hood. Let her see. Light stabbed into Amy's eyes. She blinked, adjusting, taking in her surroundings with the kind of focused calm that came from knowing panic would get her killed. She was in a shipping yard, surrounded by containers stacked like building blocks. 6 armed men watched her with the cold professionalism of people who killed for money, and standing in front of her, looking almost apologetic, was the man Young Min had trusted above all others. I'm sorry it came to this, Jin Ho said, pulling up a chair to sit across from her. You seem like a decent person. Wrong place, wrong time. Story of my life, Amy replied, proud that her voice didn't shake. Jin Ho smiled. You have courage. I can see why he likes you. But that's the problem, isn't it? Young Min has never cared about anyone the way he cares about you. It makes him sloppy, emotional, weak. He'll kill you for this. He'll try. Jin Ho leaned back. But first, he'll have to find you. And by the time he does, I'll have everything I need, his network, his contacts, his territories. The Black Dragon will have a new head, one who isn't distracted by debts of honor to a waitress. Amy forced herself to meet his eyes. You're going to kill me, eventually. Jin Ho checked his watch. But not yet. First, you're going to make a phone call. You're going to tell Young Min exactly where you are. And when he comes, and he will come, alone. Because he's that predictable, my men will end the reign of Kang Young Min. A phone was thrust into Amy's face. Jin Ho dialed, put it on speaker. Young Min answered on the first ring. Amy. Just her name. But she heard everything in it, fear, rage, desperation. I'm at the Skyline port, she said, before Jin Ho could give her a script. He wants you to come alone. It's a trap. Jin Ho backhanded her. Amy's head snapped to the side, stars exploding across her vision. You have 2 hours, Jin Ho said into the phone. Come alone, or I start removing pieces of her. The line went dead. Amy spat blood, looked up at Jin-ho through watering eyes. He's not coming alone. You don't know him at all if you think he's coming alone. Jin-ho's smile was pitying. I've known Young Min for 15 years. He'll come alone because his pride won't allow anything else. He'll come because he thinks he can save you through sheer force of will. He stood, gestured to his men. Secure the perimeter. Kill anyone who approaches. And when Young Min arrives, make him watch before you kill him. Sung Min found his son in the wreckage of the penthouse, standing amid broken glass and bullet casings, staring at the empty medical room with an expression that would have terrified anyone who didn't know him. Young Min. They took her. Young Min's voice was hollow, broken. I promised I wouldn't let them take her. And they... I know. Sung Min moved slowly into the room, stepping over debris. Jin-ho sent me a message. Gloating. He doesn't know I have other phones, other contacts. He thinks I'm a harmless old man. Young Min turned, and Sung Min saw his son's face properly for the first time in years, saw past the mask of control to the terrified man underneath. I can't lose her, Abog. I can't. Then we won't. Sung Min walked to the closet, pulled out a garment bag that had hung untouched for 5 years. Inside was the beige trench coat he'd worn in his operational days, back when people called him the Iron Fist and crossed the street to avoid him. Jin-ho made one critical mistake. What's that? He forgot that before you were the dragon, I was the dragon. Sung Min shrugged on the coat. It fit like memory. And I still have friends in this city. Old friends. Dangerous friends. The kind who owe me Yunahe. Young Min's expression shifted, hope flickering to life. You can't. You're retired. You have a pacemaker. I have a son who loves a woman worth dying for. Sung Min checked the pistol he'd kept hidden for emergencies, found it clean and loaded. That's more than enough reason to come out of retirement for one last operation. Father and son looked at each other, and something passed between them, understanding, respect, the acknowledgement that they were about to declare war on the city. Skyline Port, Young Min said. Jin-ho controls it through shell companies. It's a fortress. Fortresses have weaknesses. Sung Min pulled out his phone, started making calls in rapid Korean. The security grid runs on a system I helped install 15 years ago. I know the back doors. I know the patrol patterns. And I know. He smiled, and it was the smile of the Iron Fist, sharp and merciless, that Jin-ho never bothered to change the protocols I wrote. Young Min armed himself methodically. Pistols, knives, body armor. They'll kill her if we attack head-on. Then we don't attack head-on. Sung Min's last call completed. He pocketed the phone. We attack like dragons. The assault began at midnight. Sung Min sat in a van 3 blocks from Skyline Port, his laptop connected to systems Jin-ho didn't know existed. His fingers flew across the keyboard, decades of muscle memory taking over. Security cameras looped. Motion sensors went dark. Electronic locks clicked open in sequence. Grid is down, he said into the comm unit. You have a 10-minute window before they notice. Make it count. Young Min's voice crackled back. Copy. Going in. On the screen, Sung Min watched his son move through the shipping yard like controlled violence. Young Min avoided the main approaches, used the blind spots Sung Min created, dispatched 2 guards with brutal efficiency before they could raise an alarm. But Jin-ho had numbers. Young Min had fury. Inside the main warehouse, Amy heard the first gunshots. She looked up from where she'd been zip-tied to a support beam, saw Jin-ho's expression shift from confidence to concern. Status. He barked into his radio. We're under attack, one man. It's Kang. The transmission dissolved into screaming and gunfire. Jin-ho grabbed Amy's face roughly. He came alone. The fool actually came alone. I told you, Amy said quietly. You don't know him at all. More gunshots. Closer now. Jinho grabbed a pistol, gestured to his remaining men. Kill anyone who comes through that door. The warehouse door exploded inward. Young Min entered with a pistol in each hand, and Amy understood in that moment why people feared him. He moved like death, firing with inhuman precision, every shot finding a target. Men fell around him, return fire sparking off the containers, but he kept coming, unstoppable, inevitable. His eyes found Amy across the warehouse, and she saw relief flash across his face. Then Jinho put a gun to her head. Stop. Jinho's voice echoed through the sudden silence. Stop or I'll kill her right now. Young Min froze, his weapons still raised. Blood dripped from a cut on his temple, his suit was torn, but his hands were steady. Let her go, Jinho. This is between us. This was never between us. Jinho pressed the gun harder against Amy's skull. This is about power, control, the future of the Black Dragon. She's just the catalyst. Then take it. Young Min's voice was eerily calm. Take the syndicate. Take everything. Just let her go. Jinho laughed. You'd give up your empire for a waitress? Without hesitation. The sincerity in Young Min's voice made something crack in Jinho's composure. You're weak. I was right about that. The old Young Min would never. The lights went out. Sung Min's voice came through Young Min's earpiece. Now, Young Min moved on instinct and trust. He dropped, rolled, fired blindly at where Jinho's voice had come from. The muzzle flash revealed Amy throwing herself sideways, still zip-tied but twisting away. Jinho stumbling backward, his shot going wide. The lights came back on. Young Min was already moving, crossing the warehouse in a desperate sprint. Jinho raised his pistol, aimed at Amy's retreating form. Young Min threw himself between them. The bullet meant for Amy caught him in the vest, the impact driving him to his knees. But his own shot was true. Jinho went down, clutching his shoulder, his weapon clattering away. No! Amy reached Young Min, her zip-tied hands awkwardly touching his face. Are you... vest? He gasped, winded but alive. I'm fine. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Amy looked at Jinho, bleeding on the concrete. He's finished. Young Min cut Amy's zip ties with a knife from his belt, then stood slowly, retrieved Jinho's weapon. Looked down at the man he'd called brother. You were right about one thing. I've changed. The old Young Min would have killed you for this. But the man I am now? He looked at Amy. He just wants to take the woman he loves and walk away. Sirens wailed in the distance. Sung Min's voice crackled through the calm. Police in 3 minutes. Time to go. Young Min took Amy's hand. They ran through the shipping yard together, past the bodies and the wreckage, toward the van where Sung Min waited with the engine running. As they sped away from Skyline Port, Amy pressed against Young Min's side, his arm around her shoulders, both of them breathing hard and alive and together. You shielded me, she said quietly, just like I shielded your father. Yunahe works both ways, Young Min replied. In the driver's seat, Sung Min smiled. The sun rose over a different world. Young Min spent 3 days dismantling the Black Dragon Syndicate. He called meetings with rival factions, offered territories freely, negotiated peace with enemies who couldn't believe their luck. The empire his father had built and he had maintained crumbled by design, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but memories and debts finally paid. They'll think you're weak, Sung Min observed, watching his son sign away the last of his holdings. Let them. Young Min didn't look up from the papers. I spent 15 years being strong. It cost me everything except what matters. What mattered was sitting in the next room, eating takeout with Dr. Choi and arguing about physical therapy schedules. When the last signature was complete, Young Min walked away from the conference table and didn't look back. 6 months later, a small diner opened on the coast, 3 hours north of the city. It was nothing fancy, 16 seats, a counter, checkered floors that reminded Amy of May's but brighter, cleaner, full of possibility instead of desperation. The sign outside read, "Second Chances" in English and Korean. Amy worked the morning shift, taking orders and pouring coffee for locals and tourists who had no idea the woman serving them had once been shot defending a mob boss's father. Young Min worked the kitchen, learning to cook with the same intensity he'd once brought to running a criminal empire. Sung Min sat in the corner booth every Tuesday and Thursday, drinking green tea and reading the newspaper, occasionally offering commentary on Young Min's cooking that made his son throw dish towels at him. On quiet afternoons, when the lunch rush ended and before dinner began, Young Min would find Amy at the counter, slide onto a stool across from her, and just watch her work. "Any regrets?" he asked one day, rain streaming down the windows in patterns that no longer triggered panic. Amy considered the question seriously. She thought about her old life, the struggle and fear and loneliness. Thought about the bullet, the blood, the moment everything changed. Thought about the man across from her, who'd given up an empire because she'd given him something more valuable, not a single one, she said. Young Min smiled the real smile, the one he only showed her, soft and genuine and unguarded. He reached across the counter, took her hand. "Me neither." Outside, the ocean crashed against the rocks, relentless and eternal. Inside the diner, a waitress and a reformed mob boss built something new from the ashes of their old lives. And in the corner booth, an old man watched his son find the peace that had always eluded him, and knew that sometimes the greatest empires were the ones you walked away from. The debt had been paid. The grace had been given. And what remained was simply love, ordinary and extraordinary, worth every bullet and betrayal it had cost to find. The end.